This week, deep in debt and unperturbed, the students who owe the state tens of thousands in unpaid study fees.
I wouldn't say I feel guilty. There's so much money to go around.
And later, we find out if poor training could be to blame for the failure of a so-called miracle contraceptive implant.
That thing works, my dear.
How's about he tries it himself? And let's see how it's going to treat him. And let's see if he'll be able to deal with the headaches that I've been dealing with every day.
This is Checkpoint, and I'm Ngepile Mabuse. Students want it now. Government says it's unaffordable and universities are caught in the crossfire. As the war over free higher education rages on, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme remains the only vehicle many have to access funds. But NSFAS is owed billions by unrepentant former students who believe the system is corrupt. 31-year-old Tulani Mkhize is unrepentant and unperturbed about the tens of thousands of rands he owes the state. 9 years ago, he completed his degree in environmental health at the University of Johannesburg. Without the assistance of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, Tulani would not have a qualification. His mother is a domestic worker and was unable to pay for his varsity fees. Tulani's original debt was 76,000 rand. With added interest, it has gone up to 83,000, and he hasn't paid a cent.
Yes. This protest inside of me to say, why a black child that was affected by the apartheid system, for example, because of what it did to my parents, it affects even me. So why is it that our government is not looking at it from a perspective of saying we want to capacitate you and we want to sort of contribute in helping you become a better person by having a qualification?
Are you aware that your protest and you not paying back NSFAS is denying the very same black child that needs your help? Don't you feel guilty?
I wouldn't say I feel guilty.
But you know that not paying, disadvantages other people who are in the position that you were in.
There's so much money to go around. Like in the corporate sector, there's enough money that they can bring into the education system.
Tulani is one of more than 240,000 former students who collectively owe the scheme a staggering 6.4 billion rand. Almost 2.6 million financially needy students have benefited from the 51 billion rands allocated by the scheme since its inception in 1991. NSFAS spokesperson Kagisha Mamabolo says, although NSFAS gets increased funding from government each year, non-payment by unremorseful debtors like Tulani make it impossible for the fund to stay afloat.
We are unable to even pay upfront registration for our students. We are even unable to fully fund the students. You would find that most of the students would only get tuition fee. We can't pay for the accommodation. We can't pay for the transport, we can't pay for the books, we can't pay for the food.
NSFAS student loan repayments are calculated at 3% of a beneficiary's annual salary. Recipients are only expected to pay once they have a job with an annual salary of at least 30,000 rands. The repayments increase to 8% when a debtor's salary reaches more than 59,000 rands per annum. According to this formula, Tulani is required to pay 4,744 rand a year. That's 390 rands a month, an amount he says is unaffordable under his current circumstances.
I have the responsibility to take care of my siblings. and there's 5 siblings that comes after me. So I have to take care of them, and besides my siblings, I now have 2 kids of my own. So I have to also take care of them.
Tulani also says he was unaware when registering for NSFAS funding that it was a loan and not a bursary.
Desperate times calls for desperate measures. There was no time to go and read the contract. I just told myself to say, as long as it will be able to address the current need, because at that particular time the need was for me to get myself into tertiary and study.
Utter rubbish, says Mamabolo.
It is quite clear before you even complete it that it's a loan agreement form. And part of the terms is simply that you need to furnish NSFAS with your financial information.
In fact, had Tulani passed at least 50% of his subjects every year, 40% of his loan could have been converted into a bursary. And his last year would have been free had he finished his degree in record time.
The course takes 3 years, and then what happened is that I did 4 years because I failed one subject.
It is a well-known fact by all our beneficiaries that if they work a little bit harder, there will be an incentive that comes from the loan agreement form that they've signed, that a certain portion of their loan will be converted into a bursary. So it is well known.
In July, Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan announced that the South African Revenue Services would start sharing taxpayer information with NSFAS in order to collect debt from graduates who haven't paid. 25-year-old Itumeleng Kosana has only been employed for a month and says NSFAS isn't the only institution she owes.
I really don't know how to go about it, and what hurts is it's looked as we don't want other black students to study, which is not the truth. Because we have been there. We have been in those lines. I still owe the University of Pretoria because NSFAS didn't pay the whole fees. So I don't even know where to start, UP or NSFAS or home, because black tax is also a thing.
Itumeleng has a degree in drama and film studies, but works at a call center. She says she first has to provide for her family, who supported her throughout her varsity career, before she can think about NSFAS.
I was unemployed for 6 months. That means there's debt that I owe just to have been able to afford a meal in those 6 months.
Itumeleng's NSFAS repayments are a mere 100 rands a month. But she claims even that is too much on her already insufficient salary.
I mean, it seems like 50 rand is nothing. What is she talking about? But it's a lot. It's 5 days of bread.
The graduates we spoke to blame their lack of remorse on government corruption. Last year, Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande ordered a probe into allegations of corruption and collusion in the scheme. Itumeleng does not believe money paid back by students is reinvested as it should be.
Where else do you think it's going?
I mean...
Where else do you think it's going?
Where else do I think it's going? To someone's pockets. Nkandla still stands there, and it's a financially moral for us to go study. But there's nothing wrong about morality when it comes to Nkandla being there. And I mean, that is just the icing on the cake,
Higher Education Director General Gwebenkundla Konde says allegations of corruption are being investigated, but that they cannot be used as an excuse for non-payment.
If I can make an example by myself, I benefited from NSFAS, and I'm not coming from a rich family. But the part of a loan that was given to me, I paid when I started working, because consciously I wouldn't have lived with a situation whereby after I've been assisted, qualified, and deny another person to enter the system and qualify.
NSFAS has got the legal right to actually collect the money as soon as there is sufficient proof that you are earning enough to can afford to repay.
When we return, Treasury says essential services will suffer if any more is invested in higher learning. But what about cutting back on wasteful expenditure?
Eliminating waste as a strategy to finance higher education is unlikely to succeed.
According to National Treasury, money had to be diverted from essential services to fund the 0% university fees increase announced last year. And the same will happen this year in order for government to ensure that the poor and so-called missing middle are exempt from increases in 2017. But why is Treasury not focusing on cutting back on waste to find funds for fees? And what has happened to recommendations by a ministerial committee into student funding? Back to Busisiwe Kumete.
Professor Salim Valley, an associate professor at the University of Johannesburg, was part of a team tasked by Higher Education Minister Bladen Nzimande to investigate the best model for free varsity education in 2012. The task team found that free university education for the poor in South Africa is feasible.
We believe strongly that education should be seen as a public good.
Professor Valley finds the NSFAS funding model problematic.
If you look at the number of people who are unemployed after graduation, to expect them to pay back is a serious problem. Now, I know with NSFAS, there's a particular income you need to have before you pay back, but that too is the ceiling of that is very low.
He suggests that government explore other ways for beneficiaries to repay their debt.
Some of the points are around giving back to society, that the beneficiaries of this free education must, for a period of time, work in communities or in public institutions. So, in a sense, they are paying back in kind.
Last year, yet another commission into the feasibility of free higher education was commissioned by President Jacob Zuma. Critics say it's a waste of time.
There is a track record of what these commissions do, which is basically give the impression that the state is concerned, is doing something.
Treasury says there have been numerous reports on higher education funding, but none have been implemented.
The mistake we have made as government is that we have proceeded to expand access to higher education without a very clear solution to how this is going to be funded.
We asked why the billions of rands wasted by government every year are not channeled to higher education.
Yeah, it's a very good question. There's a lot of waste and inefficiency in our public services. But eliminating waste as a strategy to finance higher education is unlikely to succeed. Because if you say to, for example, a hospital, eliminate waste, and once you've eliminated the waste, we're going to take the money away from you that you've saved, the incentive for that hospital to eliminate waste is very limited. Whereas if you say eliminate waste so that your hospital can function on a better basis, you're more likely to get an elimination of waste emerging out of that situation. So it's absolutely correct for the student movement and others to look at government spending and find places where money is being wasted and bring that to the attention of government and demand that it be addressed. But it is not a sustainable way to finance a need which is going to be extremely expensive of free higher education for the working class and the poor. So I saw one of the posters held by the students says, in Cuba, bafunda mahala. They're studying for free in Cuba. It may be true, but it is also true that university professors in Cuba are paid salaries that domestic workers in South Africa are paid. And I don't think anyone is discussing how we address the costs. If we're going to pay for this thing, how are we going to address the costs within the university sector?
The current Commission of Inquiry into Higher Education funding has been told that free tertiary education would be financially immoral.
It's funny how leaders and officials can call free education financially immoral when you earn about 5,000 rand, and it's not financially immoral for them to have their clothes on that salary when you have to support a family of 6 and you're only 21?